Hi, everyone. We got to get our ducks back in a row.
Christy, you're going to need to reassign co-hosts.
Okay.
It wouldn't be an official virtual conference if we didn't have a couple of technical issues.
Thanks everybody for being flexible.
I'm just impressed with how quickly you guys can adapt to that. So
we had a few minutes of behind the scenes, like, what is going on?
You go, girl.
Bob Heinlein said it many years ago, early 60s, to err is human. To really muck things up takes a computer. Only he didn't use the word muck. He used the word that kind of sounds like it, you know? And then my friend Oz, he's an electrical engineer up in Laramie. He added a little addendum to that. For those who don't believe in eternal life, they've never had to deal with an error in the database. An error in the database is eternal.
Erica, I see you just got on. Erica, do you want to go now or let people trickle
Sure.
in and go after? You want to? Okay.
I mean, this is the highlight of your presentation, so I want to make sure everyone's on and listening to this sponsorship break. No, yeah, I can go. I think I have 2 minutes, so I'll be quick. So I am Erica Williams. I'm with AstraZeneca. I'm glad I got my company to sponsor. I think this is such an important event that you guys do every year, and I hope it's in person next year because I do think there's value to the networking. But I am on the lung team for AstraZeneca, and I represent Imfinzi durvalumab, which is an IV agent for stage 3 unresectable non-small cell, as well as extensive stage small cell, which, as you know, is a difficult disease to treat. And then I also have an oral agent, Tagrisso osimertinib, for EGFR positive non-small cell. And we talked a lot about survivorship and the importance of survivorship in this program. And I will say it's quite remarkable in lung cancer that we're actually talking about overall survival curves being bumped, and that we're now considering survivorship programs for these lung cancer patients who used to have, fatality just several years ago, the developments of immunotherapy and targeted therapies. So I love being on this team. And I will say, if you are at all involved with lung cancer patients, if you want more education on immunotherapy, adverse event management, or any interest in survivorship pertaining to lung cancer patients, we have great resources, and I'd love to connect with you because we do focus on the whole multidisciplinary team. Thank you for the opportunity. Did I talk fast enough?
Thank you, Erica, so much for supporting us. I appreciate you.
For sure, you bet.
All right, Allie, we'll give the controls back to you to start introducing poster speakers. And I'm going to send just another reminder to everybody for this session. So hopefully more people will trickle on as we go on.
Let me just take a quick look at the participant list and see if the looks like most of the presenters are on here. Who do we have up first? We go to the next slide, Allie. Is that Maggie? That's you, right?
Yes, that's me.
Perfect. Okay, let's get started because Maggie is here. So
Awesome.
Great.
So this year for the poster sessions, we decided to be a little bit creative. So the format for these is all of our poster presentations have been pre-recorded in kind of a variety of formats in 8 to 10 minute video. So we will be playing the videos for you guys, and then we'll have about 5 minutes following the video for some conversation with the presenters. So we'll go ahead and get started. And the first presentation is, does the Americans with Disabilities Act Protect Someone with Cancer, from the Rocky Mountain ADA Center.
Hi, my name is Maggie Sims, and I'm with the Rocky Mountain ADA Center. ADA stands for the Americans with Disabilities Act. And my poster presentation today is Cancer and the ADA. What are your rights in the workplace? The ADA is a very broad and far-reaching law that provides protections for individuals with disabilities in public life, but also in the workplace. So it's important to know how the ADA applies to you if you are a person who has or who has had cancer. The Rocky Mountain ADA Center is one of 10 centers that provides information and technical assistance on the law. And that just means you can give us a call or email us or talk to us when you have a question about how the law might apply in different types of situations. We serve the Rocky Mountain region, which is Colorado, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Utah, and Wyoming. You can see the other centers on our national website, which is adata.org. When you use our 800 number that we all share, it will route you to your center automatically. What is the significance of the ADA to the cancer community? The ADA has a set of definitions, and that's how it's determined if someone is covered under this law. So there are 3 definitions, and a person with cancer, all 3 of these can apply to an individual. The first definition is a person has a physical or a mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities. The second definition is a person who has a record of an impairment that substantially limited a major life activity. This can include histories of mental or emotional issues, drug addiction, alcoholism, heart disease, and cancer. The third definition is a person who is regarded by others as having a disability. Even though they may not have one, somehow they are regarded as having them. So these definitions are very important in knowing how it might apply to you. First of all, what are major life activities when we say that? And of course, these are just what the average person does every day. You may be substantially limited in the major life activity of hearing or seeing or talking or being able to go to work or being able to breathe or concentration or thinking. It's very broad and was intended to be very broad. So on my poster, I have a few listed, and these are just a few of them. So any life activity that is substantially limited may mean that you are covered under the ADA. So you want to understand what that is. So who is protected by the ADA? For, the first part of it is that they meet one of these definitions of the ADA. Secondly, when we're talking about in the employment area, a person that is protected by the ADA, they must be a qualified individual with a disability and who can perform the essential functions of their job. So under Title I, this means that the individual is able to satisfy the skill, the experience, the education, and other job-related requirements that they have for them. And then that they can perform the essential functions of that position, and here's the important part, with or without an accommodation, a reasonable accommodation. That's a very key word under Title I of the ADA that you do want to be well aware of and understand what your rights are. So if you determine that you are an individual with a disability related to your cancer, then what are the next steps? What is it that you need to know in order to be protected? First of all, 2 of the key words or terms that we use under Title I of the ADA is reasonable accommodation. That's very important. This is a modification or an adjustment in the workplace that allows an individual to be able to do the essential job functions of their job. So it can be very, very broad and flexible, and all the way from medical leave to providing someone the ability to work from home. So it's very much related to each and every individual situation. And so first of all, that's the important thing to know, is what does my employer have to do in regard to providing me with a reasonable accommodation? And then secondly is the interactive process. This is also very important. So if you, as an individual, need an accommodation in order to provide, be able to do the essential functions of your job, then the employer should engage in an interactive process with you to help determine, first of all, what accommodations are available, what will allow you to be able to perform the essential functions of the job, and at the same time fulfill the needs that your employer has of that particular job position. So this can be, this can take some time. It doesn't always have to, but it can. The important thing is that there is a process where the employee and the employer discuss what the issues are, some suggestions for what accommodations are available. There has to be time given for the employer to research and see what can be provided. And again, this is so unique to each individual. It can take some time to determine that. The ADA does not say exactly how long the employer has before they provide you with an accommodation. But what it does say is that you have to do it expeditiously. So, you know, that can mean a lot of different things. So be aware of that. Be aware that the employer may need some time, but also be aware that it has to be a reasonable amount of time when they provide an accommodation. That's kind of the ADA very much in a nutshell. And some resources that I have for you that I wanted you to know about, first of all, would be the Rocky Mountain ADA Center. And our national number is 800-949-4232. Our website is rockymountainada.org. And you can go to the national website. If you happen to be outside of the Rocky Mountain region, you can find your center at ada.org. adata.org. Some other resources that are really, really helpful is another organization is called Job Accommodation Network. The JAN, they go by for short. Their website is askjan.org. They actually can provide suggestions on different types of accommodations that are available for different types of disabilities and impairments. They speak with employers as well as employees to help everyone have some good ideas about what to ask for. They also give some background on how to ask for an accommodation, what the procedures are. So it's good for employees. It's also good for employers to be aware of this wonderful resource. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, or the EEOC, is the enforcing agency for Title I of the ADA. You can file formal complaints with them if you feel like your employer has discriminated against you based on your disability. And their website is eeoc.gov, very simple. Their number is also 800-669-4000. So this, again, is the ADA in a nutshell for Title I. There's many more components to it, and that's why we're here. So if you have questions, if this has sparked an interest, or you have more questions about what the ADA and how it may apply to you, please feel free to give us a call at 800-949-4232. You can also email us at Rocky Mountain. Let me give you my direct email address, which is msims, SIMS, at mtc-inc.com. We look forward to working with you. Thank you so much for your attention.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Maggie. And one thing I didn't mention at the kind of beginning was that all these posters will be on the symposium website. So it looks like Maggie has a few hyperlinks in hers. And if you just want to explore any of these posters further, they will be available online. So do we have any questions or comments or anything for Maggie?
See, I see a repeat direct email address. My email address is msims, S-I-M-S, at mtc-inc.com.
It looks like there was another question from Lynn. Have they looked at the symptoms of COVID if they are covered under ADA?
And that's a great question. And the answer, just like every ADA question, is it depends. COVID at this point in and of itself is not necessarily a disability. And so you have to look at each situation, again, depending on what we're talking about. If we're talking about employment, reasonable accommodation, if we're talking about, going into public areas using face masks, that's a huge question that we're getting. So it depends. Sorry, I have to tell you that. You can go to the EEOC's website, eeoc.gov, and they do have a section on COVID in particular, and how it relates to possibly being a disability, and or those who might be higher, what's the term they use? More vulnerable to an issue. So that's about as direct as I can get with an answer. It depends.
It looks like we have another question from Denise. How long does a disability have to be present, and how long does that take to determine?
There's no specific time that it has to be present. The determination is made by those three definitions that I mentioned. And so, tomorrow, if I can become a person with a disability. So it's based on really, do you meet that definition? And the EEOC, in determining it, if something is a disability or not, it's another part of that interactive process and a dialogue. There are some disabilities that are not visible, obviously, and I'll just say someone has cancer. That's not one you can necessarily look at and tell that they have it. So if I'm requesting an accommodation from my employer, then they do have the right for documentation of that. And so basically, I should just be able to provide medical documentation. And by medical, whoever it is that's treating me. It's not always a medical doctor. It can be a therapist. It can be a rehabilitation specialist. So in and of itself, that shouldn't take that long to determine. So it's pretty flexible.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Maggie. This is such an important topic, and it's so important for people to be aware of this. So we really appreciate it. If anybody else has any other questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the chat. And if we have time at the end, we can circle back to all the presenters for some further conversation. So thank you, Maggie.
Thank you.
All right, the next poster is the meaning and function of hope among young adults with advanced cancer. And it's Jen Curran-McCullough from CSU.
Hi, my name is Jen Kern McCulloch. I am an assistant professor in the School of Social Work at Colorado State University, and I'm going to share with you today my research that explores the meaning and function of hope among young adults who live with advanced cancer. And so over the next 10 minutes, I want to talk with you about the meaning of hope among young adults living with advanced cancer and a theory I developed that explores the social and psychological processes young adults use to engage hope. And I'm going to give you some practical implications for your clinical work with young adults. So cancer in young adulthood comes right at the time when they are building footholds in their careers and their educational attainment and also in their relationships. So when cancer comes, and especially in advanced cancer, it really halts many folks in this developmental trajectory. And so this also leaves them with a broken sense of identity and who they are, a sense of lost purpose, which places them at risk for hopelessness, despair, and also a desire for hastened death. We know a little bit of hope in advanced cancer, but we really don't know how it's unique during this young adulthood development. So this is going to show you a little bit about my study and how I developed this theory of contingent hope. So it's a grounded theory study using Glazer's classical grounded theory methods. It's developed out of a Hi, my name is Jen Kern McCulloch. I am an assistant professor in the School of Social Work at Colorado State University, and I'm going to share with you today my research that explores the meaning and function of hope among young adults who live with advanced cancer. And so over the next 10 minutes, I want to talk with you about the meaning of hope among young adults living with advanced cancer and a theory I developed that explores the social and psychological processes young adults use to engage hope. And I'm going to give you some practical implications for your clinical work with young adults. So cancer in young adulthood comes right at the time when they are building footholds in their careers and their educational attainment and also in their relationships. So when cancer comes, and especially in advanced cancer, it really halts many folks in this developmental trajectory. And so this also leaves them with a broken sense of identity and who they are, a sense of lost purpose, which places them at risk for hopelessness, despair, and also a desire for hastened death. We know a little bit of hope in advanced cancer, but we really don't know how it's unique during this young adulthood development. So this is going to show you a little bit about my study and how I developed this theory of contingent hope. So it's a grounded theory study using Glazer's classical grounded theory methods. It's developed out of a semi-structured interview, also including the hope timeline, which I'll share with you. I used a Qualtrics survey to look at sociodemographics, and really, according to Glazer, I did a constant comparison. So while you're collecting your data, you're analyzing it and interpreting it in the hopes of building a theory. So this is the hope timeline that I shared with young adults. And so as we're doing their interview, I asked them to plot along this timeline above the line anything that says to them that they were more hopeful, and below any times that were threatening to their hope or their visions of how things would be. And I encourage you, this would be something that would be fabulous to use in practice. So my study recruitment process included young adult females and males ages 18 to 39 while they're receiving treatment, and currently 18 to 39. It would be those who are stage 3 or 4 or who had blood cancers from 3 cancer treatment centers across the Southeast. And also I looked to young adult cancer support agencies. And I ended up with 13 young adults, 10 female, 3 male. And most of them were white, had some type of college education, were stage 4, and had a blood cancer. Okay, so our findings, but real quickly, I want you to think about how you would define hope, because I'm asking them to dive deeply into this. So it's important as us, when we're engaging with others, to know really how we define hope. How do you see it appear in your work with your clients? And also, how do you see it impeding their own, in their lives? How does hope, what are threats to hope, I guess you could say. So when they defined hope, you'll see their quotes in the right, but there were definitely different key characteristics to hope, often to include some sense of energy, whether it would be light, sunlight, warmth, something that included energy. Included some sense of control or options where they could be the ones making the decisions. It was dynamic, it changed a lot, and also typically had positive valences. So things would be better, things were good, things were curable, these kinds of terms. So from the study, I developed a theory of contingent hope, which you'll see here. At the top are illness threats, and in the middle, this box is really this contingent hope cycle where folks, young adults with advanced cancer, gain a sense of agency and also the pathways or resources to get their ultimate hope, which was reconciling their pre-cancer and post-cancer identity. So you'll see these factors that help build agency and pathways are how they're navigating a sense of uncertainty, threats either at initial diagnosis, recurrence, remission, and then a feeling of sense of being physically, social, and emotionally broken. And then how they are going through this grief and feeling broken. And then a sense of finding bearings and who they are. So real quickly, navigating uncertainty often came because they had shattered visions of health and healthcare systems. They were misdiagnosed for months, for years at a time. So they're trying to figure out how they cope with something so threatening to who they are. This often resulted in a sense of body betrayal and despair emotionally. Disorienting grief, so lost orientation to all aspects of their former life pre-cancer, the lost identity, sense of social isolation because nobody understood. So finding bearings is where they're prioritizing their health, sometimes over what gives them social joy and their social relationships. So they're learning as well how to reframe their goals and looking towards building this sense of identity that marries their authentic self, both pre and post cancer. And oftentimes this includes finding young adults who understand and get what it's like. So real quickly, infertility was huge among our female population, as you can imagine. And so a quote for them is feeling broken. I know I saw myself as broken because I couldn't give him a child. That broke me the most. I felt so sad. And disorienting grief. It was like another feeling like being on a different planet. It was surreal. People around me were worrying about papers and tests, and I was like scheduling my social calendar around cancer. And last one I'll share is reconciling identities. So like it takes a long time to physically put yourself together, and then you start dealing with all the psychological and emotional stuff because you didn't expect that. So that leads me into clinical implications. Oftentimes, young adults are in this for the first time they experienced any threat to their own personal mortality or any traumatic experience. So they're going into this blindly. Most of them had no one who understood and were not even referred to a social worker or a counselor to work through their grief and loss. So I encourage you to find ways to bring in counseling and support for these young adult populations. Recognize they're feeling broken, recognize their infertility concerns and feeling in a world where no one else understands. Try and connect them to other young adults who have advanced cancer. And also look at mechanisms for hope. So how can you help them have control? How can you help them stay on their goals or reframe goals so they feel like they're having a sense of purpose? And oftentimes the sense of purpose was being a mentor to other young adults with advanced cancer. So timeline, encourage you, provide this to your patients, let them go home, draw it out, bring it back and talk with you about it. This I could not have done without funding through the American Cancer Society and the PEO scholars who funded this dissertation study. Some references. And the HOPE timeline, you can see this reference number 10. You can see that timeline and find out more about it. And any questions for me? I did my study at UT Austin, so you'll see that at the bottom. But I am at jen.kermaclough@colostate.edu. So I thank you. I look forward to chatting with you. Let me know if you have young adult patients that are interested in connecting. I've developed a great online group intervention that is showing great results and helping them to find hope and meaning making through their illness. So thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Jen. Apparently my computer thought that the beginning of your presentation was extra important and wanted to repeat it, so I apologize for that. But do you have any questions or comments for Jen and her work? Amanda says, nice work on a difficult topic. And I'll echo that. This is super interesting and definitely really important for our AYA cancer patients.
And I can just start dialogue if anyone doesn't have questions to know about.
One
Sorry.
more question. It came through privately. How does anyone reach you to join your group? Is it nationally available?
That's great. Yes. So we just started a pilot. It's called Photographs of Meaning. So it's a photo voice, meaning centered psychotherapy type of intervention. So I do it over Zoom, and it's open to anyone. They could send me an email. I think we're going to start recruiting for the next rounds of the group. But it's been amazing to see young adults who, especially I think during COVID, are feeling this tremendous sense of social isolation. But they're just sharing their lives through photographs. And I think last week, the best comment I heard in the group was, it's really changed the way I look at the world and how I see things. So for me as a social worker, that just made my day. So yeah, send me an email, and I would love to partner with anyone. It can be anywhere around the country, the great joys of telehealth.
On that note, could you pop your email into the chat if you don't mind?
Sure.
And I think it's also on the attendee packet, but just to make it easier right now. Another question, do you have ideas for your next research project?
Right now, carrying this photographs of meaning to a larger audience, I think to any population, I think it would be helpful. Especially during, like I said, the social isolation of COVID. I'm also looking now, interviewing social workers around the country that are working in healthcare to find out how their experiences have been during COVID. So learning a great deal, especially from our oncology and palliative care social workers, about what it's like working with their patients and what they need, and caregivers as well. So I'd love to look at caregiver experience for our oncology patients to see about their grief and what they're going through. And I think they're kind of a missed voice in what's happening right now with all the visitation restrictions. And I think, yes, so older patients and younger patients, I think there are a lot of similarities. I think that contingent hope cycle, and I can send you the article if you're interested, but any illness threat, I think we all, when we're dealing with something so intrusive to our lives, have to find a way to sort of navigate and find what's important to us, learn how to advocate, and really gain our resources. So I think it could be applicable to any population. I first started out looking at older adults, and I could take a lot of that information and apply it to younger adults. But I think younger adults in particular, it's the developmental crux and sort of the life yet unlived. And how do you brace for the fact that maybe you won't have a future, where older adults have experienced some of those milestones already. So I think that's kind of the developmental perspective that's quite different.
All right, anything else for Jen? Jen, I love Photo Voice as a research tool, so I'm excited to see what you come up with. You'll have to make sure and you share that with us.
Well, thank you, Ellen. As I said, thanks to the American Cancer Society, I got to do this work. So thank you.
All right, so like I said, after our first presentation, if we have time at the end, we will certainly continue this discussion, but for now, let's go ahead and move on to our next presenter. Thanks again, Jen. All right, our next presenter is Lynn Bentley, talking about symptom burden, identity balance, and emotional distress in cancer survivors, mediation analysis.
Hello, I'm Dr. Lynn Bentley. This poster presentation is on research studying symptom burden, identity balance, and emotional distress in cancer survivors using a mediation analysis. Previous to this study, the nursing research literature on identity was qualitative and suggested that cancer patient identity changes in response to the existential crisis of cancer. This was in contrast to the research findings of Erickson, who in 1980 wrote that identity is a core construct that is formed early in life and whose fundamental structures maintain throughout life. The importance of understanding these phenomena, identity balance, symptom burden, and distress in cancer patients, cannot be overstated. Emotional distress is key in the experience of cancer survivors and is described as the sixth vital sign. It is a core indicator of a patient's health and well-being. Symptom burden was chosen because as an antecedent to emotional distress, it was the most often physical symptom precursor cited and resulted in the greatest amount of variation in distress. The quantitative study was initiated to measure and provide evidence about the relationships among symptom burden, identity balance, and emotional distress in the cancer survivor population using a mediation analysis. The theoretical foundation was found in mid-range social interaction theory and nursing theory. Burke, a social scientist, suggests that a recalibration of identity in response to threats occurs through a lens that reflects how a person believes others perceive him or her. Newman's theory of nursing describes how the individual evaluates and implements lines of defense in response to stressors. Burke's and Newman's models link identity balance and stressors as antecedents to emotional distress. This connection frames an understanding of how emotional distress ensues from responses to changing circumstances and is influenced by the degree of identity balance. This is a representation you can see on the poster of the mediation model as described by Barron and Kenny. It shows the relationships among variables. The path between variable X and variable Y is the direct path labeled path C. In simple mediation, an intervening variable is introduced and asserts an effect on the path between X and Y, resulting in path C prime. In complete mediation, path C prime, the measurement is 0. Partial mediation occurs when path C decreases, yet is different from 0 when the mediator is present. Assumptions for this model are that there's a causal relationship between symptom burden and emotional distress, and that there's also a causal relationship between identity balance and emotional distress. A cross-sectional study design was used. It involves the analysis of data collection from a sample at one specific point in time between 16 and 18 months post-adjuvant cancer treatment. This is a time point that research has identified as one when distress spikes. A non-probability convenience sampling technique was chosen because this method permits accrual of as many subjects as possible. The physical subscale of the condensed memorial symptom assessment scale was chosen to evaluate symptom burden. It was developed as a rapid symptom assessment scale to measure physical aspects of symptom burden and is comprised of 11 items using a Likert scale ranging from 1 to 4. Not at all to quite a bit. To measure identity, this study uses Whitbourne's 1987 work on the identity balance scale, which is a subset of her identity and experience scale. The identity balance scale measures the extent to which the individual approaches experiences with a consistent sense of self, but with the flexibility to incorporate discrepant information about the self into identity as the situation demanded. The brief profile of mood states measures emotional distress. It was selected due to the ease of completion and the highly satisfactory internal consistency. The tool measured tension, anxiety, depression, anger, fatigue, confusion, and vigor. The instrument reliability statistics are provided on the poster in the table shown. Each questionnaire had a simple eligibility statement at the top of the first page of the document. Candidates were asked to confirm eligibility by marking yes, that they met the requirement of having completed adjuvant chemotherapy within the last 6 to 18 months. Tables on the poster show the demographics, which are consistent with research requirements for comprehensive evaluation of population diversity. Of the questionnaires accrued, Online and in hard copy, 128 were acceptable for this study. This was adequate for effect size as determined by polymer analysis. Linear regression assumptions for normality, linearity, and independence were measured to evaluate paths between variables for model fit. Overall fit for each path model was assessed prior to inferential analysis to assess the generalizability for each path model. Results revealed the difference between the R-squared and adjusted R-squared statistics was small for each of the 4 path models. You can see these displayed on the poster in the table. This small difference means that if models were derived from the population rather than a sample, they would account for approximately 0.4, 0.6, 0.5, and 0.7% less variance than the outcome. Thus, the researcher concluded that generalizability of the 4 path models was adequate to continue the analysis. Violations of regression addressed for the study are independence, linearity, and normality. No violations of independence were found. Heteroscedasticity was found in the values of the independent variables and was statistically corrected for accurate measurement using the Durbin-Watson test. There were no violations of independence. A violation of linearity occurred in path A, and a quadratic transformation was applied, and a significant curvilinear relationship was found. The assumption of normality showed a positive skew for symptom burden and emotional distress, and a slight negative skew for identity balance. Results were significant for each path, and the statistics revealed that the models of the paths were derived from the population rather than the sample. This suggests that the data from the sample accurately represents the population studied and that results are reliable. The percentage mediated, that is when identity balance is added to the model, was 23.56%, which is statistically significant, although it reflects that this is not complete mediation. Regarding the questions that were asked, number 1, is there a relationship between symptom burden and identity balance? Yes, this passed without violations. Is there a causal relationship between symptom burden and emotional distress? Yes, that too passed, however, with a violation of linearity, in which a quadratic transformation was applied and revealed a significant curvilinear relationship. Is there a causal relationship between identity balance and emotional distress? Yes, that passed without violation. Does identity balance mediate the relationship of symptom burden and emotional distress? No, that was not passed according to the model, although there was a significant effect of the mediator, it was only partial. Regarding conclusions and results, this was the first attempt to measure the study variables in a quantitative evaluation. It generated knowledge about the relationships of the study variables and provides insight on design limitations, possible pitfalls, and what to avoid in future studies. Violations of linearity and normality could influence results, although may be considered acceptable. Results showed a small mediation effect and strong correlation between the variables. Results suggest that core identity endures despite temporary imbalances, and that the theory implied by qualitative research that changes in identity affect emotional distress may be incorrect. Research can focus on sources other than identity balance that can affect change in emotional distress. Study results suggest identity balance endures as a core construct. For future inquiry, this includes research to discover if symptom burden rather than identity balance mediates the relationship between identity burden and emotional distress. There could be a focus on manifestations of the consequences of self-control, sense of vulnerability, suffering, and post-traumatic stress disorder rather than fundamental changes in identity and its subconstructs. Measuring personal resources and intervening to bolster where resources are lacking may provide opportunities to translate the foundational research on identity and emotional distress into interventions that restore an individual's emotional capacity to withstand the cancer journey and thrive in survivorship. Study results suggest that a resolution of suffering through reducing the impact of symptom burden may ultimately improve quality of life of cancer survivors, and quality of life studies may be an opportunity for future research. Nurses may impact the experience of emotional distress by helping survivors find value in their experience. Thank you very much.
All right, great information. Thank you so much, Lynn. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Lynn?
I had one quick comment about the previous work that we heard about, because I just felt like that was so appropriate for young cancer survivors, and certainly all of them. I've dealt with many of the younger survivors who have Lynch syndrome and other genetic abnormalities. And what was interesting to me and why I wanted to do this study was because I observed, and what I thought was going on was that because of the assaults to these people, they had such a change in identity that was what was affecting their entire experience and increasing distress. What was surprising to me was to find out that while there might be some temporary disruptions in identity, fundamentally identity stays the same. And so rather than targeting our interventions, if some of this can be translated toward identity and helping to maintain that identity, that maybe what we might want to do is consider other types of interventions that help reduce symptom burden, which is the variable that took up the largest amount of variation in that end result of emotional distress. And perhaps there's studies that could look at quality of life, but that actually identity is a stable concept. And again, this is not generalizable to the entire population of cancer patients. It was a very small study. There were only 128 cases that could be used, although the power analysis was fine for the study. So I hope that more studies will be considered evaluating this and how we can help people manage through successfully and maintain a better quality of life through this. So I really, really appreciate being able to present this information. Thank you.
Great. We do have one question in the chat that I think you kind of alluded to, but if there's anything more specific that you want to add, what are some practical applications of this study and how can it be used?
Like I mentioned, with the translation and some quality of life studies might be helpful. As much as I love the qualitative, and that was what I originally anticipated I would be doing, I found that the quantitative gave some information that had not been discovered before and needs some follow-up. So I would hope that more quantitative studies are done in this arena also. And I completely agree with the comment from Nancy about young adult survivors do feel long-term identity issues. And I'm not saying they don't. All I'm saying is that my results revealed that identity is a core concept that does endure over time. And again, it's not generalizable to the entire population. So obviously more studies need to be done about that. It was a surprise to me too to find that result. And I do have information on age as well in my demographics. So if anyone is interested, I'd be happy to share that. But I agree that more studies definitely need to be done. It was just one study on this.
A couple more questions here as we wrap up. Can you speak to the potential for post-traumatic growth?
I did not study that. Anecdotally, there is, and I also know there's a lot of research on this, primarily qualitative from what I remember from my literature reviews. And I would hope that some studies could be conducted looking at how people evaluate their experience and sublimate it to be able to make themselves a better person. And of course, that's probably our hope for all things when you go through a difficult life experience. So sounds like a great topic for another dissertation. And in terms of parallels with patients who have long-term life-altering symptoms and syndromes, there is a body of literature on that for each of those different syndromes. I did not investigate it specifically, so I don't feel like I'm adequate to speak to that. Again, another opportunity for studies probably. And I would love to chat with others and find out what researchers are doing. So I can give you my email address if you're at all interested, but I would love to continue the discussion with anyone who might be interested.
Yeah, Lynn, if you want to share your email in the chat box, that would be great. And then people just
Okay,
have it
so
at their fingertips. All right. Well, thank you so much. Such, again, a very, very interesting study.
thank you all. I really appreciated it. Thanks so much.
Our next presentation is Larry Holder, Exercising Cancer Survivorship Program, Effects of a 10-Week Physical Activity Intervention on Fitness and Quality of Life in Cancer Survivors, from the whole gang in Alamosa, and Adams State University. So another great survivorship topic.
And I just want to pipe in that they're a current Cancer Fund grantee.
Hi everyone, I'm Peyton and this is Deasia, and we're presenting on behalf of the Larry Holder Exercising Cancer Survivorship Program. Researchers in the San Luis Valley, where there's a large population of minority groups and high rates of risk factors for many chronic illnesses, including cancer, are continuing a non-pharmacological approach to aid in reducing cachexia and other side effects of cancer treatment. Currently, our study is the first and only physical activity intervention offered to cancer survivors in this rural community. In 2018, the study began as a thesis submitted by an ASU MS in Exercise Science candidate, and 1 year later, our study was awarded a grant by the Colorado Cancer Coalition so we can continue our research and continue to provide structured physical activity to cancer survivors who otherwise would not have this opportunity. Adams State University and CCC member SLV Health proposed a primary objective that by April 2021, up to 120 adult cancer survivor volunteers residing in the San Luis Valley will have participated in a 10-week supervised, individualized, and progressive group physical activity intervention aimed at improving their physical, mental, and social health. Baseline and post-testing focuses on overall fitness age, which includes cardiorespiratory fitness, muscle fitness, and body composition. Cancer-related fatigue and quality of life will be measured by established questionnaires. And the purpose of the study is to investigate changes in aerobic capacity, cardiorespiratory function, muscle strength and endurance, flexibility, body composition, overall fitness, age, cancer-related fatigue, and quality of life in cancer survivors in the San Luis Valley, following a supervised, individualized, and progressive 10-week group physical activity intervention that meets 3 times per week. It was hypothesized that participation in a 10-week physical activity intervention would result in improvements in overall health and fitness when compared to the control group. Participants were recruited by the local oncologist, media platforms, and by word of mouth. For the purposes of this study, participants were not excluded based off of gender, age, type, or stage of cancer. So in this chart, you can see our most common types and that some participants had more than one. The 12-week study began with a week of pre-testing. During this week, we conducted fitness age, grip strength, sit to stand, and 6-minute walk tests. Fitness age consisted of body compositions, a 3-minute step test to assess cardio, a sit and reach test to assess flexibility, and sit-ups and push-ups to assess muscular strength and endurance. Grip strength testing used a hand dynamometer to assess grip strength in both dominant and non-dominant hands. Sit to stand consisted of the participant sitting and standing in a standard chair as many times as they can in 30 seconds without using their hands. And the 6-minute walk test measures how far the participant can walk in 6 minutes on an indoor track. We use resting and recovery heart rate to determine cardio fitness. After pre-testing was finished, the participants were randomly assigned to the control or intervention groups. Those that had already been with us for a semester could continue as part of the maintenance group. So the 10-week intervention consisted of 3 exercise sessions a week. Each were an hour long. They all consisted of the same warm-up and cool-down. On Mondays, the participants did cardio, so they could use a stationary bike, a treadmill, a rower, elliptical, or walk on the track. After cardio, the researcher ran them through a resistance circuit, so this consisted of 8 to 10 stations, 30 seconds of exercise, and 10 seconds of rest. Throughout the 10 weeks, intensity was gradually increased through heart rate and also the weights used. After the 10 weeks, a week of post-testing was conducted in the same manner as pre-testing. For the distance of the 6-minute walk test pre to post testing, as you can see with the green graph, the 6-minute walk test distance showed significance in all groups over time with the moderate effect size, and then the recovery heart rate after the 6-minute walk test pre to post testing, as what you can see in the purple, is the resting heart rate measured prior to the 6-minute walk test showed significance in all groups with the small effect size. Okay, so for the sit to stand test, it showed a trending significance in the intervention and the maintenance group, and it had a small effect size, which you can see is the first row of the graph. And in the second row is the right grip test, and that showed trending significance as well in all groups over time with a small effect size. The left grip test was not significant with a minimal effect size, and the strength and endurance age from the fitness age test showed significance in all groups. As you can see in the control group, it increased. As you can see from pre and post testing, the intervention group decreased and the maintenance group also decreased. Body weight was trending towards significance and had a small effect size. Some circumferences and skin folds showed a significant decrease in the quality of life. Social well-being showed significance with intervention and maintenance improving, and the control group showing a slight decrease. Functional well-being showed significance with intervention having the most improvement. Emotional well-being showed significance as well, with the intervention group having the most improvement. Anorexia-cachexia symptoms had no significance, however, the intervention group improved the most. Heart rate and distance from pre to post 6-minute walk test improved, which could indicate improved cardio fitness as well as lower body strength and endurance. Muscular strength and endurance scores from the sit to stand improved, which again could indicate lower body strength as well as improved balance. Improvements on the grip strength test could indicate improved upper body as well as whole body strength. And then the muscular strength and endurance age from fitness age decreased, so this decrease again shows improvements in strength. Improvements in the overall fitness age versus the participant's chronological age could indicate improvements in fitness as well as reduction of side effects. So the average chronological age was 60 to 70 years, and their average overall fitness age was 28 to 45 years. So that's a big difference. Small reductions were made in circumference measures, which could indicate maintaining and building lean mass while possibly decreasing fat mass. We expected 80% compliance for our study, but due to those who dropped out and those who became ill and could not complete the study, we had less than that compliance. So this could have affected our results. So this first quote is from a married couple that has been with our study for at least 2 years. And they talk about how they really enjoy the group-based intervention because they enjoy getting to talk with their peers. They also enjoy getting to talk with the student volunteers. So this social interaction just helps improve their quality of life. The second quote is from a gentleman that's been with us for a while. He came to us and couldn't really walk very well, but after a couple weeks working with the student volunteers, his mood improved greatly as well as his ability to walk without a cane. This study shows that cancer survivors can benefit from a supervised, individualized, and progressive exercise program, no matter what type of cancer they have or what stage of treatment of recovery they are in. Cardio and resistance training is recommended for all cancer survivors and should be added into their daily regimen with the use of other functional activities, including balancing exercises. For the continuation of the study, we will be adding a nutritional supplementation to assist exercise benefits and to help reduce cachexia and increase muscle mass. Also in the beginning, we did have a control group that was sedentary, but as the study develops and recent research has indicated, exercise is safe for all cancer survivors and should not be withheld. We would like to thank the Colorado Cancer Coalition, the Larry Holder family, the Adams State University Kinesiology Department, the San Luis Valley Oncology and Hematology Department, the San Luis Valley Health Foundation, and the Alamosa Family Rec Center for making this study possible. And these are just a few of our most important references that we used for this study.
Thank you so much to that team. It's so great to see all of these survivorship projects It does look like we have a few members of this team on the line here, and we do have a couple questions already. So my question as well, were you able to continue this with COVID adaptations?
Oh, we have not been able to. We've just been keeping in contact with everybody, and we gave them resistant bands so that they are able to work out at home.
We've also been doing like activity logs with them as well as food logs, just so we can keep in contact and kind of keep building those healthy habits.
Do you guys feel like that people are continuing the exercise regimen on their own, or do they really need that support from you?
A lot of them just walk on their own, and it's not at an intensity I would say that would get them benefits. So they do really miss us. Like when I talk to them on the phone, they're really excited to get back, and they do miss all their peers. So they have been exercising, but not as much as they want to.
Can I say something? This is Dr. Cooper.
Go ahead.
Okay, I just want to say that all the patients miss the exercise tremendously, and it is hard for them to keep up the intensity when they don't have the motivation of others around them and the students. So we're all just waiting for the gym to reopen and let us in. And then secondly, I just want to say that the exercise intensity was intentionally kept low to moderate so that the patients could continue it. Otherwise, I think that they would get very frustrated and they wouldn't, they just wouldn't be able to continue. So, and many of the patients had lots of comorbid conditions. So we had to keep the intensity on the lower side, which is why you don't see big effects on the results. I guess one more thing, the quality of life increased tremendously for all the patients involved.
And it looks like we have a question from Heather. While you mentioned compliance, were you referring to post-intervention completion or adherence to the exercise sessions?
Adherence to the exercise sessions. So most of them were able to participate, but some got the flu, so they missed the last couple exercise sessions as well as post-testing.
This is Tracy Robinson. I'm just going to add to that, Peyton. So we did have our compliance came down, I believe, because a lot of our controls dropped out once they found out they were a control group, which meant at the time, no exercise. So that is part of the reason that we're going to give everybody an opportunity to participate in exercise from this point moving forward.
And then Dr. Cooper, you touched on this a little bit already, but Morgan's asking, have you considered doing a quality of life or emotional health standpoint for a study like this? It seems like they didn't have just physical benefits, but also mental and emotional benefits.
Yeah, and that's a very subjective thing to, you know, to say in the conclusions, but I can tell you from seeing the patients back in clinic that they all felt better. Every single one of them felt better after doing the exercise and being a part of the group. But again, it's a subjective thing, and so we're trying to figure out how to objectify a subjective finding.
And this is Tracy again. We do have quite a bit of quality of life data. It was just too much to add, and so we wanted to focus on the physical. There will be a manuscript coming out, hopefully shortly, but we do have more quality of life data, and as Dr. Cooper indicated, we did see a lot of benefits, maybe just not statistically because of the lower numbers than we had anticipated, but we are going to continue to look at that as well.
All right, well, great. Thank you to all of you. It's great.
Hey, Allie.
Yeah.
Sorry, it looks like Morgan has her hand raised. I didn't know if there was something she wanted to add. Okay. Morgan, if you come off mute if you're able to.
Sure. Thank you so much. My name is Morgan Mortazavi. I'm one of the co-chairs for the Colorado Cancer Coalition Lung Cancer Task Force. But I do have a background in health coaching. Prior to my work with the task force, I was a personal trainer, a nutrition coach, and an overall health coach. So I definitely resonate with a study like this. And I had the question about QOL and emotional health as an endpoint. I understand that it's difficult to quantify a lot of that. I think that, you know, if you just put a survey together at the end of the program that, you know, or you did a pre-test at the beginning of the program that said, you know, what's your current emotional state, like that type, there's a lot of Likert scales and a lot of other, I think, surveys out there that you could easily adapt for a study like this and test the participants beforehand and then do a test maybe midway and then do a test afterwards. And it would be able to quantify a lot of this data that is really difficult. I agree with you to capture. So yeah, that was just my comment. But overall, I think this is an excellent, and we definitely need more work about these type of lifestyle interventions and what their impact is on cancer patients and cancer survivors. So I commend you for this, and fantastic.
Thank you, Morgan. All right, well, thanks again to the Adams State team, and thank you to all the collaborators in the San Luis Valley. We're happy to be funding this and see the great success that you guys are having, and hopefully you can get back on track once COVID is, I want to say over, but I don't know if that's the right term, but hopefully you guys can get back on track soon. All right, and our final presentation is from Sarah Cannon. And so the presentation title is Sarah Cannon Virtual Breast Cancer Support Group During COVID-19, How Very Relevant. So here we go with our final poster.
Hi, my name is Marina Marvin, and I am the Sarah Cannon Breast Health Nurse Navigator at Skyridge Medical Center. Thanks very much for letting me participate in this conference today. A little bit of background of myself. I'm a 27 years nurse, and 17 of those years have been in the oncology field. I have been the breast nurse navigator here for the last 4 years with Skyridge Medical Center with their nationally accredited breast program. So I'm very proud and very honored to be part of their multidisciplinary team. So the title of my poster today is the Sarah Cannon Virtual Breast Cancer Support Group During COVID. A little background of this is that in January 2017, the Sarah Cannon Breast Cancer Support Group holds monthly meetings for breast cancer patients. These patients can be newly diagnosed, on their journey treatment, and patients in survivorship. The support group is available to all breast cancer patients in the community and the Denver metro area. Skyridge team members and the community partners provide support, compassion, and information during their journey to recovery and beyond. The support group facilitator is the Sarah Cannon Breast Nurse Navigator. Historically, this has been an in-person group at Skyridge Medical Center. The average in-person attendance ranged from 5 to 15 women each month. Each quarter, the support group members select a topic of their choice, and we have a guest speaker come to present to the group. In May 2018, the navigator received feedback from patients who were not able to attend the support group meeting in person. Their reasons given were included the distance and the time travel to Skyridge. They were immunocompromised, fatigue, or just a general feeling of unwell from therapies. Also the time of day, which is around rush hour traffic, and being uncomfortable just being in an in-person group setting. In June 2018, an call-in conference option was made available. The average called-in attendance for these meetings ranged from 1 to 3. With the impact of COVID in March 2020, abiding the CDC guidelines and the Colorado governor's guidelines, all in-person meetings were suspended. After discussion with regular support group attendees and their concern of missing this in-person support for each other, especially during COVID, virtual meetings was an option to consider. In April 2020, virtual breast cancer support meetings began. The Sarah Cannon Nurse Navigator set up recurring monthly virtual meetings and notified all navigated patients who had participated from 2017 to 2020 on this new option via a secure blinded copy email. The virtual meetings have increased attendance over 200%, averaging 20 to 25 women each month, with further increase in attendance during guest speaker presentations. The prior barriers of in-person attendance is now obsolete, including the women who felt uncomfortable to be in person in a group setting. In addition, the support group is now widely available in other communities, rural settings, and even out of state. The virtual option has opened new doors for more patients to participate. Those who are shy or uncomfortable attending in person now can dial in. The facilitator has even observed patients who initially sign up without their camera or their microphone on, and as time goes by during the meetings, they open up, they turn on their camera, and they actively participate. So the goal moving forward is to continue Sarah Cannon Virtual Breast Cancer Support Group for the rest of 2020, and hopefully in 2021 we can get back to in-person meetings in conjunction with the virtual option also available on those meeting nights. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Marina. It's so great to see the increase in attendance. This was something that we talked a little bit about yesterday, about kind of the variety of results that people are seeing from transitioning to a virtual support group. So it's great to see the results that you guys are having. So we have one question so far. How does the facilitator engage all virtual participants within the allotted time?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
How does the facilitator engage all virtual participants within the allotted time?
So we do the virtual support group meeting via the WebEx. So if we do not have a presentator doing some kind of presentation, really they just all converse with each other, you know, via the WebEx. So within the allotted time, I mean, they know exactly what time they have. So they do take turns. They do ask if anybody has any questions or how they can advocate for each other. Also, we introduce any new patients who would like to be introduced into the support group. And then everybody will kind of ask them if they have any concerns or questions or anything that they can help them with.
And then we have a question from Paula. Are men with breast cancer able to join these support groups?
So so this one is just for women only because they feel more comfortable just speaking among themselves, especially with it being a sensitive subject at times. I do actually, prior to COVID, I did set up, or I have started an all men group, and it's basically the Partners of Breast Cancer Support Group, because I felt that men would open up more if they were able to talk with other men regarding the same, they really had the same kind of questions and concerns and how to support their loved ones. So right now that is on hold, and I am working on bringing that to light as an all-male support group for all cancer types, because I've noticed that a lot of the concerns and questions that men have, it's all the same as far as what tumor site it is. So kind of opening it up more to the male partners of loved ones with cancer. So I'm working on that right now for virtually for 2021. And then hopefully back in person. We originally had it in person in Skyridge, if everything goes well with COVID and we can get back together. So that is definitely an option.
Great. Janice is asking, how do you handle enrollment and potential mental health emergencies?
So enrollment into the support group, the information about the support group is on Sarah Cannon and all the Health One websites. Also, it's also on the other Metro websites regarding the support group availability and how to sign on. There's no RSVP. So and also, you know, I have a blinded email that I send out as a newsletter monthly to all the patients that I've taken care of over the last few years to notify them each month, you know, with the Zoom or with the WebEx information. Medical emergencies, I will, after the meeting, you know, contact that patient if there is a medical situation or if they have an emergent need or there is a distress screening alert during that meeting, just from observation as a facilitator. So I will contact that patient individually and see what resources or what I could do to support them on a private note.
And then we have a comment from Laura that virtual support groups have been a blessing for her as a survivor during COVID. And one of the reasons that she initially stopped going to support groups was travel time and fatigue.
Hello, this is Evie Hughes. I'm a Sarah Cannon nurse navigator colleague with Marina. My program has really benefited from the transition onto an online virtual support group as well. I am on the other side of the metro from Marina, and so for us to be able to connect and support the patients in my Northern Territory has been really remarkable. I've had the pleasure of being a participant in one of these virtual call groups as well, and given the history of the established support group that Marina has at Sky Ridge Medical Center, it was really amazing to see the organic conversation that came from the survivors in that group. The way that they really took new members under their wings, and again, just organically really supported and helped them, was really cool to see. You know, some women were knitting, some were having tea, some were coloring, doing things to keep their mind engaged and really just use it as a social support group. So thank you, Marina, for the support. And then just to kind of piggyback off of the mental health program too, because we all utilize a lot of the same resources at Sarah Cannon. Our sister facility at the Medical Center of Aurora has a wonderful women's behavioral health program that, should there be a mental health emergency that would come out of the support group, we have the ability to connect these patients directly and utilize a psychologist to triage the situation.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much, Evie, for sharing. And then we just have one final comment here from Tommy that he agrees that the support groups that he's in have also seen their participation double. So that's so great to see that people are getting support during this time when support is needed so much, especially by people that are isolated. So thank you so much to all of our presenters today. I think this session went super well, and this was definitely kind of a test run of this format. So thank you to everybody that recorded their presentations for us in advance. And thank you for all of the great questions and comments and just conversation that's happening in the chat box. We really, really appreciate it.